Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 4, Episode 23, Tokka versus the World. Of course, I say this every time we come back after like a crazy long break, but we are back and it was a good episode. I feel like they tend to choose really good episodes to come back on, and this was a nice one. It was, kind of the Godzilla style episodes. They talk about the big kaiju war and all that stuff, but they introduced a lot of good stuff. This felt like there should have been an episode in between where we got some sort of transition, because we go into this episode and it's just like, boom, there's this huge agency that is now dealing with other aliens and realizing that there are alien threats and interdimensional threats, interplanetary threats, all this stuff. They're utilizing alien weapons and all sorts of things. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, okay, didn't see that coming in this episode. Bishop comes back into this, which was very cool. And I heard that this may have been just a reference to the 2002 version, because the EPF, as they call them in this, which is, I believe, the Environmental Protection Force, that's from the 2002 show. And I believe the character that was related to them in the 2002 version was Bishop. So I thought that was pretty cool. And just the way they did everything, I thought was really good. The human characters were just like the crappy people the whole episode, outside of Casey, of course. All the human characters, you have like the general, who's just kind of the typical general, where it's like, these guys are aliens, let's dissect them and find out some information, we're being attacked and stuff. Even after Bishop is like, hey, that's not what's happening, these guys are actually mutants, and also they live here and have helped protect the city like nobody else has. They don't listen to him. You got this giant, volcano tortoise coming down from space. He's like, hey, don't shoot at it because that won't do anything. They send a bunch of ships in there. They killed like, I don't know, 5 people at least in this episode, with all the ships constantly crashing in, as they were trying to fly through. All those ships blew up, all those people died. So that was interesting. I was like, that, they don't touch on it, but those people are dying in this scene. That was like a solid 30 seconds of ships crashing into Tokka and technically dying. So, excuse me, that was an interesting moment, but they didn't listen. The president wasn't listening. And the whole way through is like they're using alien technology, and they're just not listening to the alien information. It was like, we got the technology, let's be the army and shoot stuff. And that was pretty much how the whole episode went. So it was very interesting to watch that. And then Bishop has to turn on them. And it's basically one episode where it's like, here's this, amazing coalition that we have, and then here's the disintegration of it all in 30 minutes. And I actually like that. So I don't know where they're headed, if they'll rebound, from this crazy disaster that they had, where Bishop ends up fighting pretty much the entire protection force, who is now inside of TCIR, which I thought was pretty cool, or TCRI. Mixed up my letters, I can't really remember. But I thought it was really cool that they were actually there, which I thought was weird, but it's like, yeah, that makes sense. If they're using the weapons and technology, why not just stay in the former Krang base? It just makes the most sense. So, loved that sequence. And then Casey in this episode was good. He had some pretty funny moments. Him having 2 good ideas, and they make jokes about that. That was really funny. But he does also have a really good. Technically he doesn't escape, but it's like a pseudo escape sequence when he escapes from his latch, and then he tries to help Mikey, and he beats up a couple of the people, but he ends up getting put back in the chair. And I was like, oh man, he was almost out, but it was still a cool sequence. He bought them quite a bit of time. But I was like, that was a cool little moment that they had. Sadly, of course, he and Mikey got captured in general. And during that scene, I noticed a really odd little bug. And I guess they just forgot to do it this way. But during the sequence when they get busted, Casey puts his helmet down when Mikey's talking. And then they have the sequence where the person throws the grenades or whatever. And Casey's mask is up again. They don't show him lifted or anything. It just cuts to the next sequence after they show the grenades. And he's just in the background and his helmet's already up. And I was like, that's weird. That they did that, and they left the helmet down, or something was backwards or whatever. But I thought that was interesting. It was something that was kind of left in there by mistake. But he had a nice, tiny arc in this episode. Of course, Raphael had like the main focus in this one because of Chompy and Tokka coming down to Earth to get Chompy. And for the most part, they went through their mission, and it got emotional towards the end, which was a nice moment. Because of course, Raph is just that character where he hides his emotions. But, that's his thing. So I enjoyed seeing that. And, of course, in the end, Tokka decides that Chompy can actually stay with Raph. So that was pretty cool. And this was one thing that I thought was a bit of an issue with the way everything played out. And it was actually the argument between the Turtles and Bishop. So after they steal the ship, I was like, all right, it makes sense. They're gonna get shot down inside and stuff. And Bishop has to explain like, hey, these are the good guys, and they don't shoot them for the most part. And then they have this crazy little argument where Bishop is like, okay, relinquish the turtle or relinquish the tortoise to me. They had a really cool name. I forgot what they called it, but like the full name of the actual species, I thought actually sounded really, really cool. But he's like, just give me Chompy. And Raph said no. And I was like, all right, it makes sense that he wouldn't want to give Chompy up a little bit because he wanted to do it himself. But I was like, why wasn't there some way that that could have worked? Because it would have just been like, well, I don't want to just give Chompy to you and we head home. I want to see this through myself and explain why I did this to Tokka. And they didn't say any of that. It was just like, no. And then he was about to fight Bishop, which I knew was going to be a bad idea. Because every time Bishop fights, he just dodges until he gets like one hit that like knocks people down. And of course, that's what he does to Raph. He dodges and then grabs the sign, just hits him with the butt of it in his head until he falls down. But I was like, there's a very obvious in-between here where it's like, hey, why don't we just go with you so that we can solve this problem? Like, I understand there would have been some issues there, and maybe that could have been what led to Bishop, fighting the rest of the EPF before they even, stopped listening to him. But it was just interesting. I'm like, I felt like there was just an obvious solution to that situation, and they could have just gotten right past that. Like, hey, I don't want to just give them up, but let us come with you, because all they were going to do was take a ship and fly up anyway. It wouldn't have been that big of a difference. Like, outside of him having to deal with the EPF, for whatever reason, not listening to the fact that they're mutants and not aliens. That was like the one thing, and I'm like, that could have led to pretty much the exact same storyline if he had to end up fighting them and they had to do it on their own. But they had like that mini moment where they just argued, and I was like, that just didn't make sense to me. It was just like, no, you won't do this mission that we're about to do because I want to do it, I guess. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But that was a minor little moment. But other than that, I liked this episode. It was definitely funny. It actually had some really good action sequences. The Casey moment I thought was really cool. Bishop fighting in general is always sweet because of the way they do it. But him fighting the EPF was really cool. The Leonardo moment I actually enjoyed too, where he's fighting all the soldiers on the ground, and he can't cut anybody, so he has to flip his blades upside down, and he was punching everybody. I actually thought that was cool because we don't see that as much anymore. So it's like, I actually like when they mix it up a little, and it's like, all right, well, he won't use his blades because he'll end up killing people. So they're both upside down, and he's just punching people and like blocking the lasers. And that was another funny thing, was that with them using the alien technology, it made me think about what would have happened if they used real bullets, because they were shooting the lasers. Whole series, the lasers can just get deflected by like katanas and like wood if it's Donatello with his bow staff, and it just doesn't make a dent. I'm like, that would have been a very different situation if they were using real guns. That junk would have, it wouldn't be just stopping a laser in midair. It would have been going past that bullet, or he wouldn't have been able to dodge it or anything like that. And it just made me interested. I was like, what would this show be like if they use actual bullets on the turtles? Like, they'd probably be gone, but they don't, so they get their butts whooped, and it's cool to watch. So definitely enjoyed that. Tokka was, breathing basically lava. It was like full-on laser beams, which looked really cool. So that was nice. A lot of the Godzilla style right there. Just walking through the city, being ginormous, a lot of big open shots because Tokka's so huge. You have to show a bunch of the city with her, which I just thought was great. So I thought that looked really cool. The way they went about the sequence was good, and like I said, it led to some good emotion. Everybody kind of is happy, in the ending. And then we're going to go into the next episode, and that's pretty much it. It was definitely a filler type of episode, but it was definitely a good one. I really love seeing Bishop. I really like Bishop in general. Seeing him fight was really cool. The comedy was good. And we'll just have to see where it goes, because they do reference the fact that Chompy at some point will be big like Tokka. And I feel like, even though that's definitely possible, they mention like, oh, that's probably like 100 space years from now and all that stuff. I feel like that won't be a story that we get to see unless this show really does go on for years and years and years, just because that seems like such a one episode sort of thing. I feel like they'd save that for way later, if they ever did it. Like if they decided to just finish the show before they even bothered with that storyline. It'd just be interesting to see how they kind of went along with that. But excited for the show to be back. I believe I noticed that there was some new stuff in the opening. I can never really remember with the giant span, but I feel like there were a couple of new things in the opening this time as well, which is always very, always really really cool to get some minor tweaks and differences here and there. One thing that I noticed that never changed is Chompy is not on Raph's shoulder. I thought they'd do that when they were in space, and once they came back, it made more sense because he was actually in the scene. But it's still Slash, the little Slash from like the very first season on Raph's shoulder when he's playing pinball. So they never changed that. But I believe during the sequence when they pan across like all the characters and stuff, there's a different sequence for Karai because she was holding her katana straight up, and I'm pretty sure that was different than before because it went across her, and I think she was in like snake mode when they did like the last version of the little pan across thing. And they also seem to show not only Leonardo but Raphael as well in like the Black Ninja outfits, which I thought looked very cool. So maybe we'll get an episode where either Raph joins up with Leo, or we'll get all four turtles in like their kind of all Black Ninja outfits, which would be pretty sweet. I would love to see that. It would be somewhat reminiscent of the original comic books because they all have the same headband color. It's all red in the original series, so that would be kind of cool. It would be black, of course, but that would be kind of cool to actually see that. And of course, there's really no significant difference to it because they're ninjas, so it doesn't really matter what they wear. They're also all green, so it really makes no difference. It just looks cool. And you also get new toys from that, so that's probably a part of it. But it seemed like they had Raph in a new costume as well, so we probably will get all four turtles in sort of full-on ninja stealth costumes. And they also had Shinigami and Karai standing on the water tower, and I'm pretty sure that's new. Like, I may be wrong about the panning and cross section, but I'm pretty sure they weren't there during the last couple of episode openings, or in general, they weren't there at all during that section with Casey and the turtles. And maybe I missed it, but they still don't have April there, and I always thought that was weird that she was never a part of that. Like, once it gets to the end, I just feel like all the characters should be there. Like, at some point, April should be in there somewhere, and maybe I've always missed her, and I just never noticed she was there. But it's pretty easy. Like, Casey's right up front, and he was the first person, and now Shinigami and Karai are standing, they're like silhouettes on the water tower. And I was just like, I always felt like April should have been there. Like, I've always thought that, and it kind of bugs me now. It was like, it's always weird that we never see April during that sequence because they show the other characters. So maybe it's because they don't show up anywhere else outside of the panning sequence. Like, April gets her own. I mean, it's like half a second. The part where she's in the tire, that's not that long either. So I don't know. I always thought that she should be in that ending sequence too. But maybe that's just a crazy nerd moment for me. But thought it was a good episode. Very excited for them to get into whatever episodes are going to be the finale. I don't know if we're getting these next two episodes as the season finale because we are at episode 23 now, and I'm assuming this has to be like last season where it was like, hey, here's the super epic 2-part 1-hour season finale, and then 7 days later it's like, all right, it's season 5 now because of the way they've been doing the seasons in the show in general. So I'm assuming we're about to get the season finale very very fast. So we're gonna get our Super Shredder stuff. I don't know how that's going to play out. I'm assuming he is going to end up getting cured because, well, I don't know. There are a million versions of Shredder, so you never know how they're going to do it. And they still haven't gone to, like, the full-on Krang version of Shredder because I thought they were going to do that a while back, and they still haven't done it. So it's hard to say. They might cure him, and he goes back to normal Shredder for a bit, and then, they still hold off on the extra stuff later, but I don't know. There's a lot of elements there, so we'll see what they do with that. And of course, Karai and Shinigami have to come back into it for the finale, and maybe some other villains, outside of Shredder and all his people. But I'm excited for what we're getting. Glad the show's back, of course. Excited to see what they do with April as well. They talk about how she's kind of, she's out of the episode because she's resting and relaxing from her psychic Super Saiyan mode where she was going crazy on everybody. So they do mention that she's weaker than when she had the crystal, but she is stronger than before she even got the crystal. So her powers have increased, so I'm excited to see how they do that and if she will have those limits that she goes through, if she will ever get to that point where she does like the psychic nosebleed thing or whatever. But I'm excited to see what we're getting. It should be very soon, if not in the next next episode, then the next 2 episodes I'm assuming are going to be the finale. I can't really remember how long these seasons typically are, but I think they normally stop at 25. I think they kind of cap them off at 25 apiece. So we'll see what happens, but I am excited for where we're headed. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And there are, of course, a million characters that we still haven't seen in the series. So I would love to know which characters you guys would like to see come from the comic books, or maybe even the 2002 version of the series, because they created Hun, so we have Hun already, but they did a lot of stuff that we didn't get to see from like the 80s version of the cartoon and stuff like that, and some stuff they did make up, like the Purple Dragon. Hun, I think they only made Hun. I do believe the Purple Dragon existed before that, but they made Hun as like the leader of them. So there are a lot of characters either made for the 2002 series or just in general that we have not seen yet. Lots of crossovers as well. There are a million comic series that have crossed over with Turtles. Don't know if we'll get that with, the Nick owning them sort of deal. I don't know how that works, but there's a lot to it. There's definitely a lot there, but I would love to know which characters you guys would like to see. For me personally, I I think I'm not, in the universe enough to know a character that hasn't been introduced that I would like to see yet, because everyone that they've shown, like, really, the ones I wanted were Karai, that she was always like the main character. I was like, I really want Karai in the show. Everything else is like, alright, well, I knew you'd get Krang, because that's basically a part of the storyline, is Krang and Shredder, so I was like, that's obvious. So is Karai, but I was definitely waiting for her, because the Krang were there, pretty early on. So for me, I already got who I wanted, which was Karai, and outside of that, I can't really think of a character that we haven't seen. I heard that they weren't going to do Yojimbo, so the bunny and stuff. I heard that he wasn't going to be in this version of the show at all. They might change their minds. Who knows? They might want to make more money and just bring out some new toys of him. You never know. But if I had to pick a character, it would definitely be him. Another story that I just thought of is that we still don't have Fugitoid. He's just still ahead in space, so we might see that in the finale too. But like I said, would love to know which characters that have not been introduced in the show you guys would like to see, and also what characters that have been introduced you just want to see more of, because we still don't know what happened to a lot of the characters. They come in and then they leave and they're just gone. They're doing stuff. They don't get a lot of showtime. Pigeon Pete may or may not be dead. We still don't know what his deal is, so who the heck knows what's happening with that guy. But like I said, we'd love to know which characters you guys would like to see and what you thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.